Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhari Charan Arvind Bhakti Vedanta Swami, Sri Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Skandi Biti, Founder Charya's Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Rampada Srimad-Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Jai all the Primanandi. All that is to be assembled with all that is to be assembled with all that is to be assembled with all that is, all that is to Sri Guru and to Sri Gauranga, all that is to Sri Prabhupada. Om Agyanatimiram Dasya Jananjana Salakaya Chakshurandritam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Jata Padakamanam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Sya Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Sakanvitam Sacha Hai Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutedegi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Vyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, let us first offer our respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayesha Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad-Bhagavatam and by rendering a service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed and practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swasaya Namaha. This Srimad-Bhagavatam, known as the Granthara, as the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God as Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna's magic every second, every minute. The great artist.
Red color clouds.
Yeah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Surabhyay Namaha.
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 Mukam karoti vasalam pangum langayate girim yakripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam yakripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our morning Bhagavatam class. We continue from canto number 4. Chapter 25, entitled The Characteristics of King Puranjana. Yes, okay. And we're at 27. Text number 27. Ka ete anupatha ye ta ekadasha maha bhataha eta va lalanaha subhru ko yam te ihi puraha saraha kaete anupatayeta ekadasha mahabhataha etava lalana subhru oyam tehi purasaraha
Koyam tehi purasaraha.
Ka ete nupathayeta.
Kayete nupatayeta.
Ekadasha mahabhataha.
Ekadasha mahavataha.
Etava lanana subru.
Etavalalana subhro.
Goyam tehi purasaraha.
Koyam tehi purasaraha.
Ka ete nupathayeta.
Kayete nupatayeta.
Ekadasha mahabhataha.
Ekadasha mahavata.
Etava lalana subru.
Etavalalana subhro.
Goyamate purasaraha.
Koyam tehi purasaraha. Kayete nupatayeta.
Kaete nupathayeta.
Ekadasha mahabata.
Ekadasha mahabhata.
Etavalalana subhro.
Etava lalana subru.
Koyam tehi purasara.
Goyamte purasaraha.
कायेते अनुपतायेता
Kayete nupatayeta.
एकादश महावतः
Ekadasha mahavataha.
येतावा लरणा शुभ्रो
Etavalana subru.
कोयम ते हि पुरासरः
Koyam tehi purasara.
कायेतानुपरेता
Kaete nupathayeta.
एकादशा महामता
Ekadasha mahavata.
एतावालना शुभ्रो
Etavalana subru.
कोयं ते हि पुरासरा
Goyamte purasaraha. Ke who ete all these anurupataha followers ye they who te your ekadasha like ekadasi 11 Mahabhataha very powerful bodyguards Etaha all of these Va also Laranaha women Subhru O beautiful eyed one Kaha who I am this Te your Ahihi the snake Puraha in front Saraha going translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. My dear lotus-eyed, who are those 11 strong bodyguards with you? And who are those 10 specific servants? Who are those women following the 10 servants? And who is the snake that is preceding you? Can you repeat after me? My dear lotus-eyed. Who are those 11 strong bodyguards with you? And who are those 10 specific servants? Who are those women following the 10 servants? And who is the snake that is preceding you? Purport. The 10 strong servants of the mind are the 5 working senses and the 5 knowledge gathering senses. All these 10 senses work under the aegis of the mind. The mind and the 10 senses combine to become 11 strong bodyguards. The hundreds of women under the jurisdiction of the senses are addressed here as Laranaha. The mind works under the intelligence, and under the mind are the 10 senses. And under the 10 senses are innumerable desires to be fulfilled. All these, however, depend on the vital life force, which is represented by the snake. As long as the vital life force is there, the mind works, and the senses work, and the senses give rise to so many material desires. Actually, the living entity known as Puranjana is embarrassed by so much paraphernalia. All this paraphernalia simply constitutes different sources of anxiety. But one who is surrendered unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead and who leaves all business to Him is freed from such anxieties. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj advises a person who has taken to the materialistic way of life, which is never permanent, but always temporary, to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and leave aside all his so-called responsibilities in order to get free from all anxieties. Translation again. My dear lotus-eyed, who are these 11 strong bodyguards with you? And who are these 10 specific servants? Who are those women following the 10 servants, and who is the snake that is preceding you? So, the subject matter of the living entity in the material world, when identifying with the body, which is made up of these different subtle and gross elements, subtle elements of the mind, intelligence, and ego, false ego, and the gross senses, which are 10 in nature, working senses, knowledge acquiring senses. So the description here is allegorical, as we say, and one who is, we could say, caught up in this network of this material body, constantly having to deal with the material mind and the material senses, as Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita. Manashastrani indriyani prakriti stani karshati. The word karshati means hard struggle. Everyone in the material world who is identifying with the body, who is having to deal with the very difficult mind, mind is difficult because the mind is uncontrolled. Mind is uncontrolled because it is constantly being pressured by the demands of the body, by the demands of the senses. So this causes constant agitation. This causes constant, as mentioned here, anxiety for the living entity. So it means that actually one who is in material consciousness, one who is devoid of Krishna consciousness, must be in anxiety because he's actually forced by the laws of material nature to actually live out his previous karma. This is the very difficult situation actually for everyone in the material world, and therefore we see people get caught up in so many different activities and so many very difficult situations, which brings people actually to situations which become very often intolerable, isn't it? Just like in modern day society, because for the last few hundred years especially, the main emphasis, the main focus has been promoting the gross materialistic way of life, being a major deviation from what society is meant to be. Therefore, people have become in ever increasing anxiety around the world, um, and therefore people are suffering in so many different ways. People are not able to get along with one another. Nations are not able to live peacefully, and it is therefore the cause of so much of suffering. Thus, Prabhupada mentions in the purport the solution to resolve this anxiety that must be there. Anyone who is devoid of proper knowledge or understanding has to be anxious. Just like Prabhupada gives the example, animals, birds, or any animal is always on the lookout because at any moment some other creature might capture him. So one's always like that, in anxiety, and that is the same. Just like animals, other species are devoid of proper understanding, proper knowledge. Therefore, anxiety must be there. That's it. We can observe that every single day, looking at the different species of life. And we can also observe that in the human form of life as well. People who are not knowing who they are, who don't have basic knowledge, then they are not actually able to be happy, to be satisfied, and they engage in all kinds of activities which ultimately cause their destruction. So Bhagavatam in this way is trying to give us this message. Prabhupada quotes Prahlad Maharaj, that Prahlad Maharaj advises a person who has taken to the materialistic way of life, which is never permanent but always temporary, to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and leave aside all his so-called responsibilities in order to get free from all anxieties. this should not be misunderstood. It's not that everyone who's in family life has to leave their responsibilities at that is there. But the Bhagavatam, of course, that we see in the seventh canto, does mention that even in family life, one has to be at least mentally detached. If not physically detached by leaving home, one has to learn to be mentally detached and not become overwhelmed by, especially in family life, so many complexities, so many difficulties are there, because in family, just like we understand, everyone can understand how difficult it is to deal with our own mind, with our own body, isn't it? Our body, our mind, constantly, because we are here in the material world, constantly being pressured by the adi bautik, adi atmic, adi daivik. Telephones should be closed during classes. It's an unnecessary disturbance for you and for everyone else in the class. You know, unless you're a doctor on call emergency, you don't need to have your phone to access your phone. Either you're in the class or you're not in the class. You know. So, therefore, yeah, how to become mentally detached is very important, because we cannot avoid family life. We cannot avoid society. We're living in the material world. We're constantly having to face so many situations. But by developing this understanding, by developing this higher consciousness, we have the ability to cope with whatever may come. It's not that somebody who becomes a devotee, all the problems disappear. The problems are still there. The problem of old age, the problem of disease, the problem, other people's problems. But one who cultivates Krishna consciousness develops the ability to cope with these problems, to not be affected by these problems, to understand that whatever may happen is meant to happen. Whoever might, for example, insult me or not like me or whatever, this is all part of a whole, drama that is unfolding, and we are part of that drama in the material world. And so many things are coming back to us, and we don't realize it. Only those who cultivate Krishna consciousness know how to deal, with these situations, and therefore it is only those who are cultivating this higher understanding that we're not this body, that all of these reactions are taking place, that one therefore can learn to be peaceful in mind, even when facing death, which is the ultimate, challenge for all of us in the material world, because most the people in the material world have no idea what's going to happen after death, isn't it? But devotees know what's going to happen after death. And therefore, as we chanted yesterday, as our acharyas teach us, Bhaja Hurimana Srinanda Nandana Abhaya Sharanara Vindare. When we take shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, then we have no fear. Abhaya. Otherwise, it's Bhaya. full of fear and anxiety. Mm. And therefore, someone like, thank you, saving Krishna's energy. And therefore, someone like Prahlad Maharaj, even though under extremely difficult condition, his life being threatened again and again by his demoniac father, Hiranyakashipu, he was totally undisturbed, isn't it? So it means the more one becomes surrendered, the more one takes shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, the more one is absorbed actually in activities of devotional service, then such a person is not affected by all of the anxieties that are caused by all of these interactions that take place in the material world. So it's a great science, of course, and it cannot be imitated. But in the Vedic culture, we see when individuals and when society live based on the recommended practice by regulating our lives, then members within such a community who are practicing God consciousness, Krishna consciousness, their lives actually become very peaceful. They become very happy because they are rightly situated, properly situated. Most people are not properly situated, therefore they are naturally in anxiety. So the description continues here. We're just about halfway through, actually, the chapter. We will read 28, text 28. Tvamrira bhavanyasyata vag rama patim. This is, I think, yeah. Tvamrira bhavanyasyata vag rama patim. Vichindvati kim munivad raho vane. Tvad angri kamapta samastakamam. Kvapadma kosha patita karagrat. Translation and purport. My dear beautiful girl, you are exactly like the goddess of fortune, or the wife of Lord Shiva, or the goddess of learning, the wife of Lord Brahma. Although you must be one of them, I see that you are loitering in this forest. Indeed, you are as silent as the great sages. Is it that you are searching after your own husband? Whoever your husband may be, simply by understanding that you are so faithful to him, he will come to possess all opulences. I think you must be the goddess of fortune, but I do not see the lotus flower in your hand. Therefore, I am asking you where you have thrown that lotus. Okay, Prabhupada gives the following purport. Everyone thinks that his intelligence is perfect. True or not true? Of course. I'm right, you're wrong. Sometimes one employs his intelligence in the worship of Uma, the wife of Lord Shiva, in order to obtain a beautiful wife. Yeah. Different demigod worship for different material gains. Sometimes When one wants to become as learned as Lord Brahma, he employs his intelligence in the worship of the goddess of learning, Saraswati. Sometimes, when one wishes to become as opulent as Lord Vishnu, he worships the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi. In this verse, all these inquiries are made by King Puranjana, the living entity who is bewildered and does not know how to employ his intelligence. Intelligence should be employed in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As soon as one uses his intelligence in this way, the goddess of fortune automatically becomes favorable to him. The goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, never remains without her husband, Lord Vishnu. Consequently, when one worships Lord Vishnu, he automatically obtains the favor of the goddess of fortune. One should not, like Ravana, worship the goddess of fortune alone, for she cannot remain long without her husband. Thus, her other name is, what's her other name? Chanchala. Chanchala, or restless. In this verse, it is clear that Purana is representing our intelligence while he is talking with the girl. He not only appreciated the shyness of the girl, but actually became more and more attracted to that shyness. He was actually thinking of becoming her husband, and consequently was asking her whether she was thinking of her prospective husband or whether she was married. This is an example of Bhoga Icha. Bhoga Icha, the desire for enjoyment. One who is attracted by such desires becomes conditioned in this material world, and one who is not so attracted attains liberation. So as long as we have attraction for this material world, that attraction makes us conditioned, and condition means we cannot become liberated. To become liberated, as mentioned here, we must give up such type of conditioning or attraction in the material world. King Puranjana was appreciating the beauty of the girl as if she were the goddess of fortune. But at the same time, he was careful to understand that the goddess of fortune cannot be enjoyed by anyone except Lord Vishnu. Since he doubted whether the girl was the goddess of fortune, he inquired about the lotus flower she was not holding. The material world is also the goddess of fortune because the material energy works under the direction of Lord Vishnu, as stated in Bhagavad Gita. Maya dakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam. The material world cannot be enjoyed by any living entity. If one so desires to enjoy it, he immediately becomes a demon like Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, or Kamsa. Because Ravana wanted to enjoy the goddess of fortune, Sita Devi, he was vanquished with all his family, wealth, and opulence. One can, however, enjoy the Maya bestowed upon the living entity by Lord Vishnu. The satisfaction of one's senses and desires means enjoying Maya, not the goddess of fortune. So, this was explained by one of the early disciples of Srila Prabhupada, who was sharing her realization in the very early days, because when Prabhupada went to the Western countries, as we know, it was the period in the West of the what is called the age of psychedelics. You know what that is? Drugs, psychedelics. Young people were revolting against modern system and revolting against having to go to the Vietnam War at that time was, and they were trying to find happiness. Everyone ultimately is trying to find happiness because we cannot live without happiness. But until and unless we know the proper way to find happiness, we try to find it in so many wrong ways, so many materialistic ways. And so this devotee was mentioning that she was speaking to Srila Prabhupada, who was making this very point being made here, that actually there is no happiness in the material world. The so-called happiness that people, or that we can experience, is false happiness because it is temporary. It is, like we were discussing about rasa. Material rasa is there. You know, the hog is very nicely experiencing material rasa by eating stool. But we know that eating stool is not such a great thing. But the hog doesn't think that. He loves it. That's his, he loves the juice of stool. He doesn't mind living in a filthy place. But we know that filthy places is not so nice. We clean our home every day, our apartment. We wear clean clothes. We eat sattvic food. So that devotee, this simple statement made by Srila Prabhupada, that forget about material happiness in the material world. And somehow it's like at different times we hear either in a class or somebody might be speaking, and because we are maybe listening at the right time, something clicks. Something clicks, and we remember that, and we can actually realize it. It just it becomes real, let's say, for us. So in other words, that devotee from that time onwards had this very nice realization that actually there is really no happiness in the material world, and therefore we should stop endeavoring to find happiness, and we should instead become serious in practicing spiritual life. Can you sit up? Better exercise for your body, for your back. Better simply engage ourselves, absorb ourselves in spiritual life and devotional activities, which will actually bring us susukam kartamavyayam, performing devotional activities properly, under proper guidance, with proper association, in keeping with what is mentioned in the Shastra, will we bring direct experience our direct perception, we'll be able to ourselves understand, experience that satisfaction. Our mind will become peaceful. We will not be caught up in what is described here as the ever-growing anxiety that is actually there in the material world. The level of anxiety that one experiences, especially from a young age in modern day society, has become like practically unbearable. Yeah, not bearable. And therefore, therefore, naturally, people are in great anxiety. People are suffering. So that is what Krishna consciousness can give, actually, to individuals and to society. It can bring about individual and collective peace of mind, as Prabhupada would explain. The Bhagavad Gita is giving us the peace formula. Bhoktaram Jaggata Prasanna Sarvalokal Maheswaram Suridam Sarvabhutanam Gyatvanam Shantim Richyati. When we know these three simple realities of life, Bhokta, Bhokta means to enjoy. Bhoktaram, Krishna, he is the Bhokta. Krishna is the original enjoyer. And Krishna, he is the Mahaishvara, the supreme controller. And Krishna, he is the Suridam, Sarvabhutanam, the best friend, the well-wisher of all living entities. The more we understand and lead our lives according to these three basic principles, then Gyatvanam Shantim Richiti, Shanti. Shanti means peace, happiness. The more one will be peaceful. Simple formula, but it's a matter of applying it. So any comments or questions on this?
This is one question regarding relationships.
Regarding?
I mean, devotees also sometimes give us anxiety. How to deal with devotees?
Devotees should not have, why devotees should have anxiety?
No, we get troubled by other devotees. I mean, to say when we are talking about family life, there is anxiety, but here we find sometimes other devotee also brings us.
Although we are in a different family, so you're saying that even family devotees, sometimes we get troubled.
Yeah, not talking about just family. Even if I'm not.
No, I'm saying the family, within the family devotees.
Not only family, but even you are in Krishna consciousness.
No, I'm saying within the association of devotees.
Yes.
When I say family devotees, I don't mean family life.
Yes.
Not grihastha life, family devotees amongst them. Yes. So that's the point I was trying to explain a little earlier. Yes. Even, let's say, making such a major decision to become a full-time devotee, hey, what happened? I'm still being disturbed. People are still, what was happening to me before I became a devotee, people, saying so many things or disturbing me. Even now I become a devotee and it's still happening. We cannot get away from various kinds of disturbances that will take place, but we, if we properly cultivate this knowledge, we will learn that's the difference between someone who is a devotee and a non-devotee, or someone who is cultivating this knowledge. The more we actually understand this knowledge of Krishna consciousness, we will not be disturbed by this disturbing situation. The disturbance will be there.
But
We have a choice to be disturbed or not to be disturbed. The disturbing person is there. We cannot change him or her. You know, he will talk to us in a bad way, or he'll do something that he should not, that we think, that we think he should not do. And we may be completely right in what we're doing, and somehow he's wrongly. It happens all the time, isn't it? This is all karma that's coming back to us. This is all Krishna's, either it's karma or it's Krishna's doing. Karma is also Krishna's ultimately arrangement. So we cannot change how people think or what people do, isn't it? But what we can change is how we react. Either we can react in a materialistic way, which most people do. Even as devotees, we often tend to react because we're still conditioned. So therefore, it's a question of, further purifying our consciousness so that we are not in the least disturbed by whatever may happen in our lives. And so therefore, it's a question of learning to apply the philosophy that we hear about, in a more effective manner. And all of these things are happening to us, and they serve as I guess, as a barometer to understand how much we have advanced. The more we are disturbed by, let's say, even devotees' actions or words, the more we're disturbed, that means that we have yet to learn how not to be disturbed. Because actually a devotee is meant not to be agitated or disturbed. Devotees will become agitated when, let's say, Krishna's devotees become unnecessarily disturbed. We were reading a few days ago how kama and krodha can be used in Krishna's service. Kama and krodha. Kama in the sense of being very active, being very passionate in our activities of Krishna consciousness. And krodha, being very angry. We should be angry if somebody comes to attack the temple or is insulting a devotee, like that. We should be. In the early days when Prabhupada came with a group of devotees you might have heard the story, back to India, Prabhupada was holding big panda programs, and I forget where this was, maybe in Surat. Prabhupada was traveling. At that time, there was no temple. There was no temple. Prabhupada was just with his band of devotees, his band of white elephants, going from one place to another. So they're having this big panda program because naturally, Prabhupada himself was immediately people could understand. He's a very learned person, and he's doing something that no one has ever done before. He's bringing all these foreign people who are, foreign devotees. The concept of foreign devotees was foreign for people in India. So anyways, there was this, it was the first night. I think they were scheduled for maybe 3 or 4 nights, this one, big pandal. So the first night, the Prabhupada gave lecture. After the lecture, he had the devotees do kirtan already before. And devotees were doing there. The stage was there. Then at one point, the devotees, because the atmosphere was becoming more and more surcharged. So the large crowd was there, and so a few of the devotees jumped off stage and had people starting to dance. And then within a short time, like thousands of people were chanting and dancing. So it was like huge success, and everyone was, feeling great ecstasy. The next evening, similar program was there. Prabhupada was on stage, gave lecture. Then there was kirtan. So the organizers of the program, they were very happy, of course, that this was taking place, and they were there the previous night, and they had witnessed this wonderful, performance of the devotees jumping off stage. So they wanted the devotees to do the same thing, but you don't. Either it happens like spontaneously or it doesn't happen. So they were pulling at devotees, trying to drag them off the stage, and they were pulling at some of the Mataji's saris. Prabhupada was watching this. At one point when that happened, he took his cartel and started swinging it towards the person who was doing that. So in other words, Prabhupada, who is a transcendental person, became very angry. Actually, Prabhupada became angry many times. Sometimes, people would criticize, hey, he's sadhu, how come he can become sadhu can become angry? Hanumanji became very angry at Ravana. To the point of burning the whole Sri Lanka, isn't it? So, his tail was put on fire. So he used, and he had a big tail, so he started running around Sri Lanka, and the whole thing burnt up, actually. So anger can be used. You can't fight a war, you can't fight unless you're angry. So Arjuna also became angry, the Pandavas became angry. But that kind of anger for Krishna service is a spiritual anger, is actually devotional service for which there's no karmic reaction. So it's a question of consciousness, isn't it? It's a question of Krishna consciousness. It's a question of Krishna consciousness. The more we actually develop Krishna consciousness, then the more we are able to deal with the material energy, and the more we are able to, we say, keep our cool. Confirm. Okay. Jai Grantaraj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki Jai. Sri Prabhupada ki
Jai. So Dinesh Bhakti Raghav